So there's a million people out there sailing, and nobody wants to watch this. But welcome to season 3.
That's horrible intro. That's horrible. It's so self-defeatist.
Okay, so
say welcome to season 3.
Welcome to season 3. Welcome to season 3, and we are out on our first sail of the year. I've been filming all last week. Now it's Sunday, it's Easter Sunday, and I had the last week off for spring break. And I think I'm going to do something different with the film this year. I'm going to go backwards, well, at least with this one. I'm going to go backwards. So I want to make this the start of the video, and then I'll show the footage of earlier in the week. So as you go through the video, my beard will get shorter, which should be a neat special effect. Here we are. There's very little wind out. We're right outside of Annapolis, in the Annapolis harbor, just kind of drifting along. We tried to come out a couple days ago, and it was just way too crazy out. It's now much colder than it was then, but the winds are a lot lighter. So we're got enough wind to just kind of cruise along here, and we'll probably cruise around for a little bit and then head back in. So this teak right here on the top of the coaming there, I cleaned that up a bit with a scraper and some sandpaper. And the next thing I want to do is finish it so it looks like the teak right there. I also, while I was here, that rescue sling, changed out the line to that, and the line previously was a yellow polypropylene line that kind of had degraded in the sun. So there's still the yellow polypropylene line inside there, but it attaches to this 3-braid nylon and then to the stanchion from there. All right, it's Wednesday, April 5th, and I fired up the engine just a few seconds ago for the first time this spring, and it worked perfectly. So everything's fine. I changed the impeller right before the end of the last season. I did an oil change, so I let it run for a little bit and topped up the oil, so I'm waiting for that to go down so I can check it again. And the engine fired right up pretty quickly. After trying to start, it didn't really take many turns to get it over, which is always good for the first time of the season. One thing that I also was thinking about doing is changing the coolant, and technically Yanmar says you're supposed to change it every 1,000 hours, which is quite a lot, considering this thing has, I think, 1,500 hours on it, and I know it was changed right before we had it, so other people say change it every 2 years, so I was kind of thinking, should I change it or not? One thing I did do is clean out the coolant tank, the reservoir, and it was kind of a little dirty, so I cleaned it out and topped it up with some distilled water. So I may or may not change out the coolant before the end of the season. I want to see what that ends up looking like once the reservoir cycles through a few times and gets some of the stuff from the inside in there and see what it looks like. I drained a little bit from the drain cocks the other day just to see what it looked like. So that looked fine. It wasn't cloudy or dirty or anything. So I may let that go. But right now, everything seems to be good. Winds outside right now are like, they say gusting to 20 is what the weather said, but I don't think we quite have that yet. We do have a small craft advisory, which is usually pretty good for us. So that means we get enough wind that we can move a good speed out there. So we're going to try to go out and see what it looks like out there on the bay. Well, we didn't end up going out today just because it's already getting really gusty and it's supposed to get worse. So it's going to be hard to come back in. What we did do is get the engine fired up, ran it for a while, no problems there. Got everything kind of ready to go out, and then decided against going out. So we'll hold off for today, but at least it was a good day to come out, get everything fired up, get the engine running, and make sure everything works okay. So apparently I'm a big dork because I bought some boat cards, and my wife says that it's a and that what?
You do not have my permission to talk about me on there.
I can't.
Just show everybody your cards.
Okay. They look something like this, and they've got the QR code for the channel on the back of them, and they've got name, phone number, email address, boat name on there. And my wife says it's very dorky that we got these.
I didn't use
and
the word dork.
it wasn't dorky, but you said something to that effect. So I've joined the rest of the world that has boat cards, and if I see anybody out in public, I'm going to be handing out these boat cards. So you can visit the channel, and so I have a boat card now. I can exchange boat cards because it's apparently what boat people do. But anyway, I put her name on it too, which she's somewhat offended by. But either way, I have boat cards, and I'm going to hand these things out if it kills me. It is April 2nd, and it's the start of my spring break. So my plan was to spend as much time on the boat this week as I can. It is April, it is Maryland, so right now the wind is howling. It's so bad they had to close the Bay Bridge yesterday because they had gusts up to 70, or they had a gust up to 76 miles an hour. So not a good time to be out on the water. So this season, I'd like to take a couple more trips. Last summer we didn't get out like a lot because of various illnesses and COVID and such. This season, hopefully we're getting out. I'm getting out of school a little bit earlier this year than last year. Last year we were in till forever, and then ended up getting COVID and all that stuff. When we have a summer vacation, we usually go on. This season, we're getting out a little earlier. We didn't have any snow days this year, and that gets us out sometime in mid-June as opposed to the end of June, almost July last year. So normally in the Chesapeake Bay, we have pretty good winds in June, and they start to die down as you get to July, and it's hard to really go anywhere in July and August. So we're going to try to get as much in as we can up front as soon as I get out of school, and make at least one big trip. So the big trip I want to try to do this year is go down to Solomon's from Annapolis, which is not that hard to do as long as the weather cooperates. Usually in the summer you have these south winds, which is kind of hard to go anywhere south with south winds unless you tack back and forth across the bay. So if we can get some days with some good winds, either out of the west or out of the north, then that will get us down to Solomon's relatively quickly. So between now and June, so it's April 2nd right now, we're going to be out as much as possible. We usually try to spend every weekend out on the boat. As far as big projects go, what I'd like to do is haul the boat out sometime this spring and have the bottom repainted. So it's in its second year in the water. Usually what I've been doing with this boat, actually this boat now, And then our last boat is leaving it in the water for 2 years and then pulling it and having the bottom painted. So that seems to be working okay. So we're going to try to pull out sometime in the early spring. I've checked with the marina to do that, and of course this time of year they're busy putting boats in the water. So once that rush of people coming in the water is over, then I can have our boat pulled and then bottom painted. When we put this boat in the water, we painted the bottom, so sanded and painted the bottom ourselves, my wife and I. And I made sure to include my wife in that because now she realizes that it's a pain in the butt, and she is more willing to have someone else do it, so pay to have someone else do it. As far as any other boat work goes, nothing big. When we haul out, one of the things I was thinking about doing is doing some work on the dripless shaft seal. When we put the boat in the first time, there was a small problem with the dripless shaft seal that I was able to fix, and I kind of like have had that in the back of my head that like I need to replace that part. It's actually the carbon stator that rubs against the metal disc thingy. There's a hose barb that comes out of the stator, and that hose barb is metal. It screws into a plasticky piece that then screws into the stator. And when I was taking it apart and then put it back together, the little plasticky piece popped out of the stator, and I couldn't tell if it was like, it didn't look like it was thread related. I'm not sure why it popped out, but I went ahead at the time and put some 5200 on the threads, tightened it up, let it cure, and then that seems to have fixed the problem. I haven't had any issues with that since, in 2 years of being in there like that. So but my thought was that I wanted to change that stator, so I'm kind of debating whether I should do that when we haul out. The other thing I was actually thinking of doing is getting rid of the dripless seal altogether, because kind of think, even though it is kind of convenient, you don't have to worry about adjusting anything, for the most part, compared to like a regular shaft seal. I'm kind of thinking that replacing it with a regular shaft seal, but that's maybe a little bit more work than probably I want to do for just kind of a quick haul out. So I'm not quite sure what we'll do with that yet, but definitely want to haul it out, get the bottom painted, and change the zincs on the prop and the prop shaft. And I think that's really all the big things. I'm sure something will come up, anytime you do one boat project that leads to others. So that's pretty much what I have for the season so far planned. As far as small projects go, last year I refinished the companionway, the crib boards, and the companionway area on the outside with a new varnish. And this year I want to do the cockpit area. There's some teak on the top of the cockpit where the winches are, and I also want to do the grab rail going down the length of the cabin top, and the little eyebrow piece that goes along the edge of the cabin as well. I'm not going to do the rail that goes around the gunnel area of the boat. I'm just going to keep scrubbing that because one, it gets slippery if you finish it, and I don't want it to be slippery, especially up on the deck where the anchor is. And two, it gets a lot of wear, and it's just a lot of work. So that shouldn't take that long. It didn't take that long to do the companionway, so that'll be another smaller project that I want to do this year. Other smaller projects, again, something will come up, I'm sure. Wind is howling out there. And we're also really, really low, so turn around and look here. You can see normally we're sitting above the dock, but we are below the dock right now. So when we first got the boat up here on the bow, there was this sort of lattice work of teak that was kind of had a couple of long strips going this way, and then a bunch of strips going this way. And I don't know what, I guess they had it so they could stand up here, but the problem it caused was the chain and everything was trapped under that, and then the anchor, would get caught, and the chain would get caught and stuff under that. So I decided to go ahead and remove it, and I ended up with a bunch of small teak pieces that had like a bunch of holes in them, so like they're practically useless really to do anything with. Was my first thought. So a couple weeks ago I was inspired by something that I saw on wasn't a YouTube channel, it must have been on Instagram, and the guy is the channel is Hold Fast, and he had these really nice looking teak cleats that he was refinishing and turning them into a coat rack. So I thought, I have that scrap teak that I can use. I'll take some of that and try to make some cleats with it. So I took that and made a few of these small cleats. These are just like maybe for 1/2 inch line. They're like something like 6-inch cleats or something like that. So they're kind of small, and I don't know what I'm going to do with them. My thought was to put them a couple places on the boat for tying up small lines or whatever, but I don't know exactly where I'm going to put them. My second thought was to make a coat rack like Hold Fast did, and maybe keep them this size. I don't think I can make them much bigger because the pieces that I have holes in them in so many spots that I don't think I can make it any longer than this. So, but I do have still a bunch of that teak left that I can make at least a bunch of cleats that are this size. So I'm going to do something with them. I don't know what it is just yet, but I'll think of something. I also fixed this rub rail along the side. On this side there were some screws missing and some screws stripped out. So I took some pieces of teak and some glue and stuffed them in the holes and put the screws back in. So there were a few back here that were missing. And then over here, this happened over the winter, I believe. There was some damage right there, you can see, to the teak. And I think what caused that is at some point over the winter, the boat was down along the dock here, and that little white thing there had fallen off. And I think it was actually rubbing on that nut that's sticking out, or the bolt that's sticking out of there with the nut on it. So I think that was rubbing right there and caused that problem. So I'm not sure what I want to do about that yet, but I did have to go back and reattach this rub rail. Over the winter, I fixed this thing. It had a bunch of holes in here, and I put the new GPS on top, and the new GPS made it was set up higher than the last one, so I had to extend this. So I replaced this entire top piece from this seam here up, and then made it a little bit taller so it sits down a little further, and then got rid of some of the holes that were there. The holes were there because they were rubbing through on the piece right here, so that's reinforced underneath there so it doesn't rub through as bad. So in the coming couple weeks or so, what I need to do is clean the boat because it's filthy. The water is still off at the marina, so I have to wait till they turn the water on before we can get that clean. I have to come up with a catchphrase at the end.
You do.
Because some people have like, everybody has like different catchphrases and stuff. So if anybody's watching and you have an idea for a catchphrase, let me know, and I'll start saying that. Other than that, that's all I got for you. See y'all later.